Hey, what's up everybody? I hope you're all doing fantastic out there. Thank you as always for stopping by the channel. Today we're talking about Peninsula. This is the sequel to the 2016 South Korean hit Train to Busan. It's been 4 years since the last movie, and many would say the zombie genre is a bit played out. So let's talk about what this movie delivers as a sequel and as a zombie flick.
많이 무서웠죠?
I think everybody would agree that Sang Ho-yeon's Train to Busan came out of nowhere. It really captured audiences. I kind of equated it to being Die Hard on a train with zombies replacing Hans Gruber and his crew, and that was more than enough to just jack up the tension 1000% as the humans on this train battled to survive against just waves of fast-moving zombies. The movie was very fast-paced. The events and the plague that struck this population happened very quickly. It just created a chaotic atmosphere that was perfect for the plotline. As for Peninsula, I think it does suffer slightly from the usual issues that can result from just expanding on an apocalyptic world post-zombie invasion. Busan was very simple. It was human versus zombies with human ethics and bravery and morality coming into play to maneuver the story where it needed to go. In Peninsula, we see the storyline set 4 years after the events in Busan. The scope of the plotline is much larger, and instead of that human versus zombie dynamic, we get the trio of human versus zombies, which doesn't always work because zombies don't need much backdrop and human characters do. I think if you related this movie to the Walking Dead series, Busan of course would be season 1, where Peninsula felt like much more of a season 4 or after, where zombies at times are an afterthought to the human plot lines. In this movie, the Korean Peninsula has been turned into a wasteland after the outbreak, and a small group led by this former soldier are sent in to retrieve this truck that is believed to be filled with money. And once they get to the peninsula, of course, they come across some survivors, and from there, it kind of feels a bit like Thunderdome. You have this massive group of what clearly appeared to be all men. They're acting like savages, and sure, it does add a villainous counter to our lead characters, but to me it just felt a little contrived and not realistically developed. So for that aspect, while I did enjoy this movie for its action, its suspense, and how beautifully shot it was, the story itself felt like it borrowed many elements from other films. It felt a little bit too large in scope, and sadly, it just didn't grab me that much, or at least just not as much as Busan did, simply because the bad guys in this sequel weren't nearly as imposing as the zombies were as the focal antagonist in the first film. However, despite not really being invested in the story too much, I will say it was above serviceable. Like I said, the direction from Yeon was impressive. He frames up some nicely crafted sequences that were very thrilling. They were just delightfully violent. The vibe of the movie is extremely gritty and unrelenting, but there's just an elegance to how it was shot on camera, and it results in a very visually appealing movie. One that does deliver a ton of artistic styling and camera angling that you just really don't see too often in Western cinema. There are some very tension-filled chase sequences, visceral shootouts, fight scenes, and enough zombie killing to fill the runtime. So where the story structure kind of lacked for me, the elements that it wove into it were more than enough to have me engaged in this movie from start to finish. I also thought the cast did a great job. I thought the performances all brought a lot of heart to the storyline. I was able to connect with each of the lead characters despite all of them feeling a little bit routine for the genre. Their dialogue wasn't overly melodramatic or scripted either, and it really just resulted in a collection of authentic characters that you kind of naturally want to see through to the end of this movie. It also does run a little bit long in places. I think it could have been trimmed up here and there to keep the pace really tight like the first film did, but again, it wasn't a deal breaker. And overall, I did enjoy this movie. It was very suspenseful in places, it was uneasy, it had me on edge, so Peninsula was a good time. I'm going to give it 75% on the meter. If you like Train to Busan, I think you might want to check this movie out. It's a solid sequel. It delivers plenty of its own thrills. I personally would have liked it if the story ventured more into the outbreak itself instead of the typical lawlessness where fellow humans become that added adversary, but in the end, it's a visually appealing zombie flick that I did have a lot of fun with. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop it a thumbs up, leave a comment below. I'd love to talk movies with you guys. Share it with your friends, and without question, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can never miss a video. Here are some links to some recent reviews just in case you missed them. All my social media links and the link to our official website are down in the description below, and I'll catch you next time.